Koutou katoa, can I invite Councillor Daniels to provide the karakia timatanga? Thank you.
He mihi whakatimata mō te hui o te rā. Tūtaua mai I runga, tūtaua mai I raro, tūtaua mai I roto, tūtaua mai I waho. Kia tau mai te Māori tū, te Māori ora ki te katoa. Haumi e, hui e, tae ki e. Kia ora.
So that's a challenge to you all. And Councillor Johansson for lateness. Can someone move that they be accepted? Sam McDonald, seconded Melanie Coker. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. There were no declarations of interest advised in advance of the meeting. If there are any issues that come up in the course of the meeting, do let me know. But actually, before I move on to public participation, can I just acknowledge the resignation of Sally Buck. Sally Buck has announced her resignation from the Waikoura Linwood-Central-Heathcote Community Board. Her resignation marks the end of her 22-year contribution to local government in Christchurch, serving first as a Christchurch City Councillor representing the Waimairi Ward, and then a term on the Pendleton-Waimairi Community Board before being elected to the Waikoura Linwood-Central-Heathcote Community Board, where she served as chairperson. So it's with sadness as she's resigning for health reasons. But we would love to send our love to Sally. And I thought I'd provide a little quote from Sally herself, from her own words. I've loved serving the community and making changes in the city. It's been a huge privilege to meet so many wonderful people through this role, and it's been an incredible insight into the wonderful community that is Christchurch. I've loved seeing new ideas and new projects come to fruition and seeing people enjoy them, and that really does sum up this wonderful, valuable contribution that our Sally Buck has made to our city. And I'd like you to perhaps give a round of applause for this incredible service, and I'll hand this over to Councillor Johansson so that he can pass this on to her. Thank you very much. And also, before I move on to public participation, can I acknowledge all the New Zealand Broadcasting School students who are here from ARA. It's great to see you here. You always come every year, and it's fabulous that you've made the effort to come and see how local council works. Thank you. So now we'll move on to public participation. The public forum. First of all, could I invite Mike Mora regarding the Fulton Hogan appeal on the Royden Quarry.
Thank you very much, Leanne and councillors, for this opportunity. I'm here, as Mike Mora, not as a community board member, but I'm here representing the Templeton Residents Association, who have asked me to appear here for them. I have circulated the email from the Templeton Residents Association, but I just really wish to read it because I think it's quite important. So it is with angst that I'm writing this email regarding the quarry appeal. We accepted the decision with heavy hearts, but believe the conditions somewhat protected the Templeton residents. Both our lawyers, CCC and TRA, agreed that an appeal wasn't the right thing to do at the time. However, things have now changed with Fulton Hogan appealing the conditions that have been placed on them, such as not wanting to report to the CDHB on the respirable crystalline silica,
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mike. Much appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you. Helen Broughton.
Good morning, everybody. I'm here to represent myself, and I just thought I'd sketch out the actual background and then go over some of the legal issues now. I think Leanne or a number of people were at the meeting where there were 500 people opposed to the quarry. I've been at 2 subsequent meetings since, and there's been about 250 people present. So it was very strongly opposed. We were the ones who did the presentation on behalf of council. We had an external planner, and we had backup conditions. I personally thought it wouldn't be one totally, but we would get conditions. Then the panel came out with conditions, and council decided not to appeal, and I fully support that. I don't think you had grounds for, in fact, appeal. But Fulton Hogan have now appealed, and are trying to remove some of the key conditions. So I'm urging council now to cross-appeal or become a 274 party, and you're only appealing against the removal of conditions. I was in the previous council long ago. There was a district plan appeals committee with 3 people, and I was one of those 3. I was on it for 9 years, and we looked at appeals going to the Environment Court, and we looked at to whether we continued with the appeal, mediated, pulled out. So what I want to stress today is that appealing does not always mean litigation. You can have informal discussions on the way through. There's court-appointed mediation, and I've been on some of those. I'm always amazed at what the applicant gives up. So appealing is just drawing a line in the sand at this point. It does not mean that you're going to court. There's a lot of talking to be done on the way. And I'm surprised at what applicants give up in formal mediation. That formal mediation is court-appointed and free of charge. This is the first time a quarry has been built close to a residential suburb. The previous quarries have always been around lifestyle blocks. So this is the first time you've had a suburb which has been affected by a quarry. There's strong concern. A lot of people in Templeton have gone out there for a quiet life, if you like, or to be apart from the busyness. That is now encroaching on them, and I fully support an appeal against Fulton Hogan taking away those conditions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Helen. As I understand it, there's a report that's being prepared which we will deal with in a public excluded environment because of the legal issues that have been raised. So thank you. There are no deputations by appointment, no presentation of petitions. I have the Council and Audit and Risk Committee minutes. Would someone like to move that they be received? Andrew, seconded by Melanie Coker. Put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And now we move on to Community Board Part A reports, and we have a notice of motion from the I'm looking the name of the committee. The Coastal Burwood Community Board, my apologies, and if Kelly Barber and Bibi Frail could come forward. Thank you. Sorry, that was what I was looking for, the Waitai Coastal Burwood Community Board. It's written in the proposed recommendation, but not in the...
So thank you everybody for this opportunity. It appears that we've made a small mistake of biblical proportions.
So this is not quite the right recommendation. This is an earlier version, and we've been working quite hard to amend it, and this is not the amended version.
Which?
The proposed recommendation is not.
That's not correct.
Up-to-date. No.
Isn't that the one you've circulated?
Yeah, that was the one we circulated this morning. Unfortunately, we were sort of progressing it all overnight and this morning, and it looks like I sent James a copy, but when he sent it on, the one that we wanted to see brought forward is actually below it. So we have it here and we could read through it.
No, I'm not going to do that. So right. I'm sorry, I'm just going to defer the item. We just need to get all of the information logged onto the screen, which is the whole purpose of providing the information in advance, so that, because I'm not going to have a discussion about the content as that nobody has seen. So okay. If you can take it offline, I'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and we'll come back to this item. Sorry, Kelly, but
that's all right. Totally understand.
There is no alternative to that course of action. I apologise. The next item on the agenda is the sale of 548 Marshland Road. Kelly, you don't mind us just proceeding with that? Moved by Aaron Kewen, seconded by, by Pauline Cotter. I shall put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Would Alexandra Davids like to come forward? We'll deal with the hearings report to the Waikoura Linwood-Central-Heathcote Community Board on the Linwood-Eastgate Public Transport Hub Passenger Facilities. Who chaired that one? Who chaired the... You chaired it, Mike. Would you like to introduce the report?
Thank you. So this is from a hearings panel regarding the Eastgate Public Transport Hub, which we made recommendations to the local community board. Most of the decision making sat with the community board, which approved it, and it was unanimous. And so there's just a few minor things that actually sit with council at the moment. There was very good support amongst the community for what which we put forward. So I'm sure Alexandra has quite a bit to say on this. I'll leave it to...
I just want to start by saying thank you so much to Councillor Davidson and my colleague Councillor Johansson for sitting on the hearings panel. As Councillor Davidson has said, we had overwhelming support for this from both the community, and we voted for this unanimously through the community board. This transport hub addresses issues for road users, cyclists and residents. We have so much support for this that we actually have one of our residents here today in support, so thank him for being here. Thanks, Peter. There were a lot of issues that were addressed, and there was a lot of work that was done to actually mitigate some of the things that were brought up through the hearings, and we are very lucky to have the support of the mall. So there were a few issues that weren't addressed at the beginning, but the mall has worked with staff to address those issues, and they are willing to work informally to hopefully put in some real-time monitoring within the mall as well. So this is going to create a space for people to be dry and more comfortable while they're waiting for their public transport. So if there are any questions, thank you all.
Any questions? So do I have a mover? Mike Davidson, seconded Sarah Templeton. Is there any discussion? Yanni?
Thank you. And I too want to acknowledge Councillor Davidson and Alexandra Davids as chair of the community board for this report. I think just to highlight to councillors that this really is addressing the safety issue that was created through a really poor design of a bus stop going in outside residential. But actually through the hearing we heard from Gen Zero and Spokes, who both expressed real concern over what was being proposed. Also the mall did at the time, but it's been acknowledged that the staff have worked with the mall around things like fire egress, and also in the diagram on page 14 you can see that there's a number of trees that were going to be removed that are now not going to be removed, and that was one of the other concerns that was raised from submitters, although the trees in the middle of the road still need to be removed. But fundamentally, Gen Zero made a really interesting point, and that was if we want to encourage more people into PT, we actually need proper PT hubs. This, I don't think it's fair to call it a hub. It's really closing a street and moving the bus stops a few metres down the road with a kind of shelter that we put in place, but it's certainly not going to be to the level of like the Riccarton bus lounge, for example. So I would hope that this is seen as a short to medium term solution to what is a very serious safety problem caused by poor decision making in the past, but that we actually don't lose sight of the fact that this community still deserve to have a decent bus interchange / lounge that provides good comfort. And if you think of people on a day like today having to stand outside in the rain with a little bit of shelter but with the wind coming through, it's not going to be the most pleasant of experience. But this is definitely an improvement on what's there, and this is something that I do support, but I do acknowledge the concerns that have been raised through others around the design, especially around the cycleways and the shared paths, and also around a proper actual hub for this area, who was one of the areas that should have got a suburban interchange way back when. So, but just wanted to acknowledge this. There has been a lot of work go into sort some of the problems, but there's still, I guess, a general high-level principle I think we should be focused on as a council around the future of PT. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I'll just say quickly, this has been a long process. I was involved in it last term. I think we went out and had a site visit there. Where the buses currently are pulling in further up to the right of that diagram to the east is very dangerous around driveways, and it was just totally unacceptable. And I think Councillor Johansson's right. I mean, the hubs and the malls are ideal, but they need to be put in when we're designing the malls. And we've got the same problem at the Palms. It would be nice to have a hub in there where people are comfortable inside and they've got the real-time showing on the screens. But to me, this is a huge step up. This is going to be really good. And the fact that we've got that mid-crossing there for people to get out of the mall and across and vice versa is going to be really good. And it's really nice to see, as you pointed out, retaining those trees. So, you know, well done running the hearing and getting a unanimous decision. I think that's really significant. And look forward to seeing this being implemented for Linwood. Thank you.
Mike?
Thank you. Just before I speak, that note at the bottom of the resolution, could that be removed? That was actually from the hearings panel and it's all been done. Thank you. I actually think this is a really good outcome for the Linwood community and bus users. I understand Councillor Hanson's desire for a bus lounge, but I don't think we need to take away the fact that actually this is going to be one of the best bus stops hubs in for a suburban centre in Christchurch. A lot better than a lot of the other ones, and the shelter is actually going to be very good. I don't think we can see when we look at Riccarton bus lounge, it's actually as great as people make it out to be. It has its own issues, and actually comes at quite an expensive cost. I do believe we do need to be working how we can try and provide a better service as we go down if we want to increase PT, but we need to make sure we do it right, and I'm not too sure if we've got the right solution at Riccarton. And I think also Riccarton's slightly different with the fact that the mall is not right hard against Riccarton Road as it is in Eastgate, and I know through the board, when I went to the board, there was an additional resolution to actually have a conversation with the mall to see if they can get some real time within it, which actually allows people to stay in the mall where it is warm and maybe have a coffee while they wait for buses. So there's an opportunity there. But I think we've actually got a really good outcome for the community. It was really good to be involved in this process. This is the area that I grew up, and so it's good to see some positive change happening in this community. So I'm looking forward to passing this resolution.
Yeah, Aaron?
Yeah, we'll be supporting this today. I just will raise $1.2 million is a lot of money to spend, so it'll be good to see some gains on this run. Under the climate change impacts, it says improvement in public transport infrastructure will promote mode shift away from private use vehicles with a resulting reduction in emissions. Let's monitor that. Let's have the evidence going forward for spending more money on bus infrastructure across the city by knowing what the growth is on this bus route. So when we do others, we use clear evidence for our decision making.
Sorry, the debate had been closed. I shouldn't have called you, but I do apologise.
I thought when you pointed to me and said my name, I was allowed to speak.
No,
it's like the old days.
I apologise. I made a mistake, and I won't do it again. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. Can I, Alexandra, before you go, can
Leanne, I'm happy to move item 10 if you want. Just to get...
Sorry, right, okay, we'll go on to item number 10. And
Happy to move.
Moved by Sam, seconded by James Goff. Mike?
Got a question of staff, actually.
Yes? Yep.
Thank you. Just a minor one. I notice in the design there's a slip lane to turn onto Graham's Road from Walrakel. I'm just curious about, I guess, the safety of that and why it wasn't looked to actually be removed to try and actually help pedestrians that are crossing.
This was a low-cost initiative within the traffic operations budget that was available at the time. To remove that slip lane would have required investigations into drainage and other matters. You would have also required quite a large radius on that corner to maintain that left turn if you took that left turn slip out.
Okay. I guess I've seen some, that we've still retained along the Victoria Street one where we put in a pedestrian crossing. I'm just trying to work out as we move forward with slip lanes, because obviously they have an issue with people with visual disabilities. Have we ever looked at actually sort of what we were going to do to try and make them slightly safer for people that want to cross there without actually, with the cars that go through it?
Yeah, we are looking at trying to, get some consistency across them. Something we'll probably do as something down the track where there's sort of different setups at different slip lanes, and in some cases, it is a situation where you've got a good level of service on the signals to the island, but you've got the pedestrians left to get the next bit by themselves. So we are looking at trying to be a bit more consistent in the future, and we might go around and just trying to sort of look at it at the moment in terms of what that might look like and how that might be applied to the different...
Yeah, because I guess my concern is for people that are walking that have a visual disability, that potentially may just step out there, where a pedestrian crossing, if you had to keep the slip lane, would actually, give them the right of way over the car, which creates an extra, layer of safety for them. I'm just wondering, if that's going to be addressed moving forward.
Yeah, the other option is zebras or something, but we just need to look at what is the best layout for as a sort of consistent approach.
Pedestrian crossing, I mean zebra,
Right, it's been moved and seconded. Oh, Aaron?
I'll just raise a question here because it was raised at the board, is around the having dedicated green arrows or not having dedicated green arrows to give protection to pedestrians, because I note in here under the considerations for accessibility that it gives further protection for people who are mobility impaired. But if you're in a wheelchair and sitting down relatively low, how confident are you that this is the best protection we could be offering at this intersection, given it's a sloppy X without a straight through line on Graham's Road?
As I think was raised in the board meeting, this is not the best in terms of if you had an unlimited amount of money, then perhaps you could put full protection for pedestrians and you'd put raised tables with pedestrian crossings on those slip lanes, but it's a very good outcome within the available budget that we've got, giving that pedestrian protection on those major those crossings.
Thank you. Mike?
30 seconds.
Because this is coming back to the board in 6 months' time, so some of the stuff we've said today will be taken into consideration when it comes back.
Yes, we've got the opportunity to put in extra ducting now with this project, and then we can look at if there's any other features that we can add later on once we get sufficient data.
Good. All right. Well, the motion's been moved and seconded. Is there any debate? Aaron?
Yeah, so the issues that have been raised were raised at the board. The monitoring was put in for this because the board agreed that with the staff that this, given the budget, wasn't the best outcome, that it's the best for the budget, but if there was a bigger budget for this intersection, given that this is the second most dangerous intersection in my ward, we did support it. It is a case of there's a really horrific accident at this intersection where two elderly people who were going to who'd made mode shift change to catch the bus to the library in town. The new library got collected when a car turned the corner. They were crossing they didn't run out of time because there's no time limit there, but they had crossed when they were told to cross. Of course, their time had run out, a car come round, most people will know that intersection, and they were hit, and the results were unbelievably terrible for them and their family. So that's why it's been pushed along. The board's fully supportive, but we did go for the monitoring because if there is a better solution later on that is needed, it may not be. So let's see what that looks like, but it's a good outcome for the budget.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. We'll move on to the Audit and Risk Management Committee. Item number 12. Sam.
Pretty straightforward, everyone. You'll see the background stuff at the beginning. There's just obviously two issues raised, which is around the so the interim audit was obviously done in the lead up to the end of the financial year. They're coming back after. Probably just two things of note. Obviously, the two things that were identified were the timely review of HR records for staff, and there's been monitoring put in place for that. And the other one was just potentially with new staff and the manual entry around rates, and that's being reviewed now regularly as well. The only other thing worth noting, I guess, is that the Audit and Risk Committee have requested that we have an update on the valuations, because that's obviously going to be something that affects the the annual report for the year. So we'll be getting that in due course. Apart from that, there's sort of nothing else to report. So I'm happy to move it.
Happy to move it. Seconded by Andrew Turner. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Consultation for proposed lease and licence of Cathedral Square land to Christchurch Cathedral Reinstatement Limited. Kathy Jardine and Bruce Rendell. Thank you.
To councillors, this is a report seeking your agreement to proceed to consultation for lease of part of Cathedral Square to assist with the restoration of Christchurch Cathedral. Essentially, the area that is within the Cathedral's own land is too small to safely and effectively undertake the works. They are proposing to lease a small additional area from council that will, the minimum possible, that will allow them to work safely. We've assessed it and do not believe there will be significant impact on other users of the square. You'll still be able to hold events and it won't have major impacts on the public. And we just need to seek your permission before we undertake public consultation.
Jake is happy to move it and Aaron is happy to second it. Questions? Sarah?
Thank you. When I look at the diagram on page 179, it's that that blue area. They've actually, I'm assuming due to safety reasons and bits and pieces, had a significant portion of that since the earthquakes without an arrangement in place. Is that right? Just due to safety reasons, or have we had something in place for that?
They've had a temporary use of legal road permit issued at the time.
Okay.
So that went through our roading team.
But that particular bit is fee simple.
Yeah.
Is that right? So it's not roading.
So after the fact, it's not the correct document that should be used, and the correct document should be a lease.
Yeah. And I noticed that we're doing this, the proposal is to do this sort of for $1 a year, sort of as our part of our in-kind. For this particular size of area, just so we can be really clear about the in-kind contribution that we're proposing to make, what would the value of this space be over?
So we calculated it based on what the temporary use of legal road is. So when you see the construction sites and they're encroaching on the footpath, there's like a square meter rate that's charged to them. So that would be about the only market that we can assess. So it's approximately $5,000 a year.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I just wanted to acknowledge staff and thank them for the hard work that you did to get a temporary licence to occupy in place to assist the project. I mean, this is a project that needs to power ahead, and so I just wanted to acknowledge that you really went out of your way to make something work for an interim measure while we go through the technical process of a reinstatement. So thank you very much from me, and I believe other councillors as well. Thank you very much. Is there any debate on the matter? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. Backflow prevention.
Being a motion paper, does it need to be moved and seconded or anything?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm happy to move it.
My apologies, Helen's in a meeting with other operational managers in the region talking water at this point in time, so you've got me to present this paper. I would like to just make a slight alteration and remove the second clause of the recommendations. It's been deleted up there on the screen, as you can see, and the reason for this is that we are making very good progress, both with the drinking water assessors and with the program of works in the water to get a compliant water safety plan. And we would like to make sure that this program of works was accelerated as fast as we possibly could. We are doing some work in it, as you probably are aware, particularly in the catchments where there are low risks, but we've got no chlorine in there, and so there are some of this work that we are doing significant work on it. If you note this today, it just enables us to accelerate. We will be notifying all the people out there with a letter so that they're aware of the works that council is going to do and the reason for those works and how it fits into the overall water safety plan delivery. So we would just like to progress it as quickly as possible so that we're hoping that all of the risks align as quickly as we can and we get sign off by the drinking water assessor. Probably should be more appropriate, probably it's the Ministry of Health in Wellington that will sign it off probably rather than the local drinking water assessor. I cannot, you're obviously also aware that there's the new regulator that's been set up at this point in time, and so what we're hoping to do is we will get, we would like to be the first water safety plan signed off in New Zealand under the new regulations that came out from the Ministry of Health. But I cannot actually predict what the new regulator might do in the future, so we have got that little bit of uncertainty. In reality, though, I imagine it will be 2 years or 3 years prior, probably to him or his office setting up a full regulatory regime for drinking water. So this is important work to be done, and we'd like to accelerate as fast as we can, and that's really just so you are aware of what we're intending to do.
Thank you. I mean, I know that a number of us have obviously taken a deep interest in this matter because of the association with the signing off of the water safety plan, of which this is one element, and the ultimate removal of the chlorine from our water, which is remains our target. Pauline, did you have a question?
I just might not be able to answer it though. Do you have any idea the time frame for this piece of work? Should it pass today?
We believe we could deliver this probably within a 12-month period. We are going to prioritise it, so we may not need to complete all of the work. I think you've got to recognise that most properties have backflow prevention on them. It's a matter of whether the backflow prevention actually meets the risk, and it's a matter of which risk profile you use. There's a number of different standards out there at this point in time. So what we are doing is ensuring that we put attention to the highest risk, and so that the risk over time will reduce pretty quickly. Now we've just got to get to a point where the drinking water assessor believes that risk is appropriately low. So, but we are hoping we would get through and would be state-of-the-art backflow prevention within 12 months' time.
And it also states in the report that some of the backflow prevention devices on certain premises are there, but with a change of use, they are no longer appropriate. So do we have anything in place now that should there be a change of use, that the backflow devices are automatically upgraded if required?
What we're doing is we are intending to put in a backflow device that's appropriate for the highest level of risk that you could use that building for.
Right.
It is an approach that Tauranga has used and used very successfully. So if you change, a good example is you could have a commercial building in town here, and it could be an office at the moment, but then it could get converted to a hairdresser, and the risk changes on backflow from a hairdresser, or it could be converted to a dentist. We would not know about that. So what we're doing is having a look at the zoning of that property, what it could be used for, and then putting in backflow prevention. And recognising we also, once these backflow preventioners, they need a yearly warrant of fitness for them. So we will know whether the property is has changed over a year, but it may be 12 months before I know that, but it won't be a problem because we will have put the appropriate level of protection in.
Right,
Yeah,
thank you.
I think that's been the issue for a lot of people, that they haven't understood that there is no mechanism for the council to know, because if it's a permitted use, they can change the use without applying for resource consent. And because they don't have to apply for resource consent, we don't get to look to see whether the backflow prevention measures are sufficient for the new use. And so this will automatically put in the highest level of backflow prevention for the highest level of use.
That's correct.
Yeah, so it's good, good stuff. Thank you.
Well, with
Aaron.
Yeah, just for public knowledge though, with the exception that we licence all hair salons and food premises and bars. So we would have a record of quite a number of these businesses, just saying.
No, but because the use wouldn't change, you wouldn't trigger a review of their backflow prevention.
But it would be in the council's
all of
computer system.
No, we don't.
Why would that keep a record?
If it is a use that didn't require a higher level of backflow prevention, you wouldn't know what it was before.
It didn't trigger it.
And probably, Aaron, I've pulled out a couple, for example, food premises do need a licence, and I've just pulled out some examples, but there's a whole range of different uses. Look, I can't remember a tattoo.
Brothel doesn't.
Look, I'm sorry, the list's about as long as my arm of different uses that could create a risk to us.
Yeah.
And so not all of them need to be notified to us, and that's the point I made. So we will take the worst case scenario and put in the appropriate backflow. And when you're doing it at this point in time, it's the actual incremental cost is not that significant.
No, and it's actually a resilience factor anyway. From a resilience point of view across the city, but each individual premises owner is not up for a considerable amount of contribution. Yeah. You'd like to move it? Pauline, seconded by Melanie Coker. Is there any discussion?
Sorry, I was just going to check that there's nothing in number one that prevented people doing the work themselves if they got in ahead of council.
What we will be doing is inspecting every property. If they have got a backflow preventer that is close to the boundary, we will not be putting in a second one. The issue that you've got under, when they changed the Building Act, and I'm sorry, it was a long time ago, they changed the backflow prevention so that the backflow preventer had to go closest to the source.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I'm just saying that if someone realised that they didn't have one that was appropriate, could they choose to put one in before you got there, like before you would...
Anyone can look at their own plumbing and do whatever they wish
That's
to
right.
it. I would say that they just have to get an independent qualified person because they are the only people that can put them in and certify that they meet requirements. So,
and close enough to the boundary and all those kind of things. So as long as we've got some good, clear information on that so that people could choose, we're just not taking away people's rights to do their own work if they choose to. We're just...
No.
Yeah.
The reason
that's
the reason for removing the second note is
the timing issue
simply because of timing.
Yeah.
And so we don't want people sitting around waiting till after everything's been done and then say, oh, well, actually, I can't do it after all. Yeah. Aaron?
Yeah, so if that is the case, why don't we just leave in two?
No, because that's writing to them and saying you have an option of, whereas if they're approached, they're all going to get a letter.
Right.
And if it says, we're going to come out and inspect, because it's an inspection plus a delivery side. So
because we know there's going to be the odd company that come forward and go, oh, we can do it half the price of the council.
Yeah, that's fine.
And we are looking at ways that people could pay it off so that they don't have to actually meet the capital cost immediately. That was a discussion that we've had with council, and so there will be ways that we could potentially integrate into their rates. We are looking at those options at this point in time.
You don't need do you need an authorisation for that, or can you do that by way of delegation?
Yes, by delegation, my understanding.
Right, that's fine. Okay, good. All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any debate? Pauline?
Just really like to thank staff for all the work we've done on this, and these issues with our infrastructure are emerging. I think we're getting a handle on most of the work that needs to be done. This is a big piece. I think the advantage of council doing this work is that we can bulk buy and get all the bits and pieces cheaper and quicker. And so I encourage people to actually support the council doing this work. It'll be done quickly, and it's not just for the water safety plan and achieving that, but for me it's the right thing to do, to have comfort that we've got good infrastructure, that our people are safe from any contamination coming in from these businesses inadvertently and contaminating our water. So this is for me this is another big step towards having that safety in place. So thank you.
And thank you for that comment, and I'll pass that on to staff. There's been a lot of people in behind the scene, technical, regulatory, it's been across the council kind of approach, so I'll pass on that thanks to them, because there has been a lot of work done by a lot of different groups within council to try and pull this together into a deliverable.
Sorry, I didn't mean to invite you to speak during the debate. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting. Thanks, Dave. Is that you, Joe?
And Jonathan.
And Jonathan. Okay. So this year, as you know, the Local Government New Zealand is not holding a conference due to COVID-19 and simply holding an annual general meeting where they will deal with the election of the officers and deal with the remits. So this resolution appoints me as the presiding voting delegate and the deputy mayor as the alternate to attend the meeting and delegate to the mayor and chief executive to determine any other. Well, I actually don't think we should do that. We should just forget it. We'll send one person and one person alone. It's either going to be myself in my mayoral role or Andrew as deputy mayor. And then noting the support of council for the following proposed remits. So we had that. We've dealt with those on previous occasions, haven't we?
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yep. So because I'm an appointee with someone else, Sarah Templeton, Aaron Kewen. Sorry. So are you going to delete 2, please? Yep. Are there any questions for Joe or Jonathan at the end of the table? Is there any debate? I shall put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. That was a long walk for nothing.
Extra steps in the day.
Yeah. The post-COVID-19 committee delegation reinstatement. I think nothing pleases us more than to see delegations being reinstated so that we can get our committee structures back up and operating. So I'm happy to move the reinstatement of all the delegations. Sarah Templeton to second. Is there any discussion? I shall put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. And the next item on the agenda is the AAC Victoria Street Revitalisation Detailed Traffic Resolutions. Who would like to? These are. Does someone want to? You're happy to move that, Mike? Seconded by Andrew. Are there any questions? Yanni?
Yeah, I just wanted to get real clarity because previously Victoria Street had come to the local community board, and in this particular case, I just wanted to check why it's not gone to the community board for a recommendation or a decision.
It's a project of metropolitan significance, so it goes to council for a decision. There's no recommendation, there's no changes to the approved design. So it is only approving the legalisation of the lines and signs.
So is this like a new thing that the boards don't get informed of things, even if they're metropolitan, or?
No, but there was no feedback required from the board. There's nothing changed from what the board commented on, but it is a council decision.
Okay. And the second question I had, is any work started on this? In terms of the resolutions we're passing, has any of the work been done?
Yes.
So
Victoria Street.
Yeah.
It's well underway, and as council you've had a number of memos about that.
So why would we be retrospectively making a decision? Like if we voted no, what would happen?
If you voted no, we wouldn't be able to. We wouldn't be able to enforce any of the lines and signs down there, and the police would not be able to enforce it.
Right. Okay. I'm just wondering like why we don't make this decision.
At the time this went through council for a decision, we were at a very high level scheme stage, and we knew there were some changes that were as a result of the decision, and we asked for council's permission at the time to come back. So this is in line with that resolution as detailed on that day, with the detailed resolutions for the legalisation of the signs and lines.
Okay.
Sarah?
Cool.
So just check. So community board gave feedback for the original decision on the actual design.
Yes.
And the design that we saw as council and signed off on included sort of a general, feedback, but also the general, like, where the yellow lines and the stop signs and things were going to go. All this is the actual enforcement resolutions, which detail the number of centimetres from the intersection and stuff. But we've already said that yes to where the lines are going.
Yes.
Mike?
Thank you. I just speaking to the second. I'd just like to add one addition to it.
Sorry?
One addition to the resolutions, which is for future detailed traffic resolutions for metropolitan transport projects are delegated to the chair and deputy chair of the Urban Development and Transport Committee to approve. These are just these are just technical formalities on a decision that's already made by.
I'm not going to accept the resolution. I actually accept the premise of it, and that is to have a small group delegated for these detailed decisions. I agree with it. But I'd like your committee to take care of that when you get your committee reinstated. So, thank you.
But I'd like to second.
Tim.
Thank you. Yeah. I haven't changed at all.
No.
Lynette, just to make it clear, the process which we're looking at and which you've carried through is as it has been explained to the councillors at the very first start of this process. So it's suddenly not thrown at us at the last minute. No. You've put a whole lot of things in, and you now need us in retrospect. This has been the process which we agreed early on. I just want to make that clear to everybody. This has not been thrown at us.
No.
Good, thank you.
This is in line. This is in line with the original regional resolutions that were made at the time.
With memos and information.
And memos and information.
Absolutely. Yep. So just wanted to make that clear.
The reasons for these really detailed resolutions is so that they can be policed and enforced when they go to court. If someone argues, it's really pedantic. But if you don't do that, then someone gets and parks in a place and they've got out for it. So basically, this is to the level of needing court proof.
So we're going to expect the chair of the committee to be talking to staff about a paper that will come forward with a proper structured discussion about where decisions should be delegated. And I do agree that we need to have a group of councillors with staff who are willing to look at the technical detail of these decisions so that they're signed off legally and are enforceable. So that's my understanding of where we're heading. Yanni? There's still questions? Okay, so Right, so it's been moved and seconded. So I'll open it up to debate. Yanni?
Yeah, thanks. So I think we do need to kind of just have a bit of a think about how these decisions are made. It is very confusing if decisions have already been made and then they come back to the council and don't go back to the original decision makers. But in September 2016, on the 22nd, the Hagley Ferrymaid Community Board made decisions to the ITI Committee, or recommendations around this project, and Whenelton Waimari Community Board also were able to make Part A recommendations, as was the Shirley Papanui Community Board. So I think there's just a real lack of clarity around when we involve boards in decisions, if they're metropolitan or if they're not metropolitan. We do have a map that shows the area of the central city that's metropolitan, and part of Victoria Street is not in that map. It is within the actual community board's delegation. So I appreciate that the chair is going to do some work around these kind of additional layers of resolutions that come. Yeah, the chair. So, you know, I think it's best to wait till that time and discuss it. But just to go back to when council made the central city delegation map, it always said at the time that even if the board wasn't the decision maker, it would still have the right to give feedback formally through like a reporting process, e.g. recommendations. So, you know, I think we should be consistent across the city. And if things are metropolitan, I totally get that they come to the council, but it shouldn't preclude the board from being informed and having an ability to give that local feedback. There are local residents groups in this area that have a relationship with the community board. So, but I'm happy to support this today. I think if we can learn from it, that would be the best outcome.
Tim and Sarah.
Thank you. I just want to thank staff for the process that we've gone through. It's been really difficult, but it's also been difficult for those businesses on Victoria Street, and to kind of ping pong around 23 pages of technical changes and what is required for the street. I don't think it really, I think it is metropolitan, and I think it is the right process that we've gone through. I just want to see this finished as soon as possible for those organisations and those companies that are on associate streets. And I know that I got approached by a couple which staff have dealt with extremely well, and thank you for the work that's done. I think this is a good process.
Sarah.
Thank you. And I'd like to point out that there's a difference in how we do metropolitan. So sometimes within the central city, projects are metropolitan because they are within the boundary of the area on the map. But sometimes projects are metropolitan because of the nature of the project itself and how it affects our transport as a city, or those kind of things. And I think that a really clear look at how those decisions are made and where they're made is really important, not just for these particular lines and things, but actually a broader discussion on that. Because things have been difficult in a couple of areas where things cross over between board and council delegations, and that needs to be smoothed out. As Councillor Johansson pointed out, 3 community boards have had a really close look at the design itself and where the lines went, where the restrictions would be, and all of that kind of thing, and gave feedback. But I don't think that it's a useful way of using expensive council staff time and energy and resources to get the boards to look at whether 20 centimetres or 60 centimetres from an intersection or a line is the right way to go. So looking forward to a broader discussion on the delegations and where they sit.
Thank you. Mike.
Thank you. And yeah, this I guess is why the chair is going to look at actually trying to simplify this process. This is a simple technical report based on a substantive decision that we've made. It has actually been a long time coming, and it has been through community boards, it has been through the community. This item now, this report does not need to go back to those forums to actually get more recommendations or decisions. There are technical reports, and it needs to be done just so we can actually enforce what we're going to put in. Actually, I want to actually congratulate staff and contractors on the actual work on Victoria Street. The speed at what this project has been done at is absolutely impressive, and it actually shows what City Council can do in transport. But yeah, I'm happy that I've moved this, and I look forward to trying to simplify the process to actually make sure these technical reports don't need to be debated for considerable time when they're straightforward. Thank you.
That's lovely. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. And the next one is Litchfield Street at Riverside Market, changes to loading zone. Moved by Aaron, seconded by Pauline. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Events and Festivals Fund. And I think, was there a change to add Melanie to it? Delegate authority to the Chair of the Sustainability and Community, Chair and Deputy Chair of the Sustainability and Community Resilience Committee. I've
had a conversation with Sarah. There are items here to be discussed that have got history, you know, and it would be good to have those who have been involved in that to be there at the meeting. So Sarah's kindly said that those who have an interest can attend, which is great.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Jimmy?
May I have a look at any of those the list? Whether have any multicultural one? Yes. I don't want to any
This is
the
just
event
1st
festival
of July
in
to the 3rd of October.
I understand.
Yeah,
I'd
just a
like to
short
have a look at
window.
those list. Okay. If there's any in relation to the multicultural one, I'd like to get involved. Same as last term.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, moved by Mike, seconded by...
No, because at the moment, the chair and deputy of the delegation, shouldn't it be chair, deputy chair, and other interested councillors?
No, they're not delegating to them. Other interested councillors can come along and be involved in the discussions, but we're delegating the authority to 3 people.
Otherwise you have to meeting, voting and all that.
If they too need to be informed, if not inform us, we don't know when the meeting will be held.
No, it's going to be held in secret. I don't know if anyone's going to second it. Phil Major. Thank you.
Do you guys want to delegate to me all the funding decisions?
Right. No.
Members.
Right. We're doing very well this morning. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour. Oh, sorry, Tim. Sorry.
I just want to make. Is there any debate? I just want to make a comment.
Yeah, sorry, Tim. Yeah.
Yeah, at least you remembered my name. That's good. No,
Approved.
it would have been totally, and I will support this, but it would have been good to have the information. That's all I'm saying. I think that's what I realise that, but it is really hard to make a decision when you haven't had the information. So just saying, but I totally support it. Have total faith in the team. So, but I just want to make that comment. I think it's a bad practice.
Yeah. Mike. Pauline. I have never got the gender wrong before. Pauline.
At least you didn't call me Ellie. So I just think this is a little bit of a dangerous precedent. I'm not supporting this, so I won't be voting for it today.
Right. I will. Jimmy?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Sorry, Mike. We dedicate committee, the chair or deputy chair, not any of the problem. But I'm still concerned, We have not yet gathered sufficient information, particularly regarding to this 3 months, regarding those the list, whether have any the festival event will be held. If some event, some of our key councillors, we need to take into account, whether we should be involved or not. Otherwise, I'm concerned will be to be the miss out. So I'm not supporting this one.
Yeah.
The chief. Look, I don't normally do this. No. This is a breach of standing orders, but I'm going to let the chief executive say what has been said and people haven't heard.
So to be clear, as I understand it, Councillor Chen and members, is that any member will be able to attend. The invitation will be sent out. You will have the information, and you will be able to hear and discuss it, but the delegation goes to the chair and vice chair. So you will have the information and the general manager. Just so that, because I feel you're going around a little bit in circles, that's all.
Just let's recognise that this is a post-COVID situation. It's to do with the committee delegations and where and when they sit and when they come back and the committee things. And we've got a whole pile of community events and activities that are waiting for confirmation for things that are happening really soon to see whether they can budget for bits of funding that they are hoping to get from council. Want to be really open about this. It's been a very quick piece of work, and information's just come through, and so anyone can come. I'll make sure that gets circulated, but it does need to be done really quickly so that we can get this done. And it's only a very short list of groups, so yeah.
Thank you. Andrew.
Thank you. Thank you. I will support this today. I think having the chair and the deputy chair is a good idea, and realising this is an exceptional situation. It's a piece of work that needs to be done quickly because there are people out there who require certainty around events. I certainly would echo the comments that have been made around the circulation of information, and certainly look forward to some certainty in seeing that. And I mean, I've got every confidence that the 3 people that we're delegating to will take into account and take very seriously the discussion that happens with people that attend that meeting, will be guided by people that have specialist knowledge in those areas, particular relationships with groups or events, or, you know, in Jimmy's case, the multicultural sector. In Anne's case, obviously you've got an interest in youth and family, and you know, we know that there are councillors that have got particular areas of interest and speciality. I've got confidence that the chair and deputy chair and the general manager will have regard to the comments that are passed during the meeting, and will be guided by those councillors that have those areas of particular interest and particular speciality. So in this instance, I believe that we can be confident. Echo Pauline's comment around, you know, this been exceptional and not something that we want to see on an ongoing basis. But I'm comfortable with this today. Thank you.
Put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. No is Pauline and Aaron and Jimmy. Thank you. Right, back to the notice of motion. If I could, thanks to staff for that. Thank you. Could I invite Kelly Barber and Bibi Frail to come to the table, please, on behalf of the Waitai Coastal Burwood Community Board.
No, that's fine. That's all right.
These have been circulated? Oh, could you circulate? We'll circulate the resolution. There was a suggestion that we break for morning tea, but I think that it's in a good place. So so let's just we'll go through it bit by bit. But perhaps if you could introduce the notice of motion, and is that you, Bibi, who's going to do that, or Kelly? Okay, Kelly, over to you.
Questions. So. Thanks for the opportunity here. Christchurch City Council has invested considerable amount of money, time and effort over many years into the regeneration of New Brighton. There's a new positivity and vibrancy to the place. Heipuna Taimoana has been an outstanding success and continues to be booked solid week after week. The refurbished clock tower is looking fantastic, has the hands-on and almost keeps perfect time. The refurbished children's playground is often alive with children and families spending time there. There's a lot of bikes parked up. The streetscaping on Marine Parade is finished and looks absolutely magnificent. Yeah, and its inset gardens provide a sort of a stylish, seamless, pedestrian-focused access between the pier, the seaside library with the best views in the world, the playground, the hot pools, and the eastern end of the mall. It's an area the council staff, all the contractors, the local residents and all of Christchurch can be very proud of. What we are looking for is a vehicle to finish off the last piece in the jigsaw, to take the momentum that is built up and bring it home. We need to give people a reason to cross the road into the mall, and to create conditions so that people will have reasons to stay, and so that the private sector can do what they do best. Imagine a riverside market or a Little High or something like that in New Brighton. So initially our thoughts revolved around a new regeneration plan, but members of council staff rightly pointed out that ultimately the success of New Brighton will be driven by action rather than the preparation of another plan. So the New Brighton Master Plan has been in place since 2015, and essentially, while progress has been slow, the blueprint is already there and is sound. So we are wanting, therefore, to avoid restarting the planning exercise we have, in conjunction with staff, drafted a set of resolutions that get to the heart of what is trying to be achieved, and we'd appreciate your consideration of them.
Thank you. Well, James, I know that you want to move this. Can I have the privilege of seconding it?
I move this recommendation.
I second the motion. Right, okay. Are there any questions? Sarah?
Thank you, and don't disagree with anything you've said. But what I would like to do is have a look at number 4 there, which is prioritises the completion of remaining projects set out in the master plan. And then request funds to be considered for the long-term plan. And I'm not quite sure of the intent of the prioritisation. Is this the community board and community working within the master plan to see which ones in the master plan are most important to be prioritised, or prioritising this work over other areas in the city like Linwood who haven't had that invested time, money and effort in New Brighton? Because they've got a master plan that hasn't had the investment that New Brighton has had, and they're a much lower socioeconomic area. And are you talking about us prioritising your work over theirs? It's tough, right?
We want, it is tough, but we want the work completed. This work comes out of a revitalisation plan that was developed in 2002, and it was deemed necessary well before the earthquakes, and has been, this version of that plan has now been in train for 5 years. It's been accepted that there are pretty straightforward things that can happen, and they just need to happen.
Yeah, I'm just,
So yes,
difficulties with number 4.
So can I just invite the Chief Executive to respond to that?
So, Councillor Templeton, the important thing in recommendation 4 is that it's asking for the council to consider. You're not accepting that you will prioritise over something else that you consider.
No, it does. It says,
no, but you will need to consider it amongst all the other things that you will have to consider in the LTP.
It says that we prioritise the completion of those projects.
The completion of the remaining projects are not all council projects, and that's the point that's being made in this resolution, is that the private sector has got to come on board. And I gave the same speech that Kelly just gave in 2002 and in 2003 and in 2004 when I was the MP for the area, and I kept making the same speech over and over again, which is that we can bring people to New Brighton, we just can't make them cross the road. And starting at the other end was always a mistake. This is the right way to go, and this is the next priority, and it's really the completion of the Oromab extension.
That's it.
And that was in the original resolution, and I'm disappointed that it's gone, but that is what we mean.
Yeah, but there's a whole pile of public funded, public realm stuff
which
that isn't the
have money
Oromab
on budget
that
for.
Isn't the Oromab stuff, and not all of it is. And there's I just struggle with the wording, that's all. Like everything else is fine. I just the wording of I can just pull that one out. That's fine for me.
Do you want to say considers prioritising?
Or considers the prioritisation of? I just
Yeah, it is what it says.
That's okay. Considers prioritisation of the completion of the...
Yeah, okay, all right. Yanni.
Thanks. Just a question of staff. What's a realistic time frame for those reports to come back that are mentioned in the resolutions, particularly under 6 and 7? And what impact will that have on other outstanding reports that are due back?
Leave that alone. Leave it where it is.
Yanni?
So I would have expected, so 6 and 7 are related to the transition plan that is underway for DCL. So DCL have led the delivery to date of the New Brighton master plan, and as councillors will be aware, we're working through the transition plan, so we just need to do that in unison. But I would have thought probably 2 months to report back, allow sufficient progress on the transition plan for us to know where the responsibility, accountabilities for these things will lie, and then for the necessary agents or staff to get their head around what will be delivered. But we want to maintain the momentum of this, not to slow things down.
So are we confident within existing budgets that nothing else will get delayed if we pass these resolutions today? Things that we've currently requested that are still outstanding around strategy and planning?
Yes.
Right.
Great.
Okay. And sorry, just I just wanted to check if we could put a time frame in, because one thing I've learned through annual plan and LTP, where we don't put time frames in for reporting back, we can wait a very long time. So I appreciate what staff have said around the 2-month period, but I do think in the resolutions it's important to put a time frame for reporting back.
The trouble is that that is completely dependent on the DCL transition planning framework.
So it wouldn't be
And until the DCL transition planning is complete, then this simply cannot be reported back. So I think that...
well, maybe we can
and it
update
says
if a report can't
request
be
to
provided.
report back once the DCL transition planning is sufficiently advanced that the necessary confirmation on these matters can be made.
It's just that you don't really want this to drag on, and
I don't want the transition planning to drag on either.
Yeah.
They're correlated in time, Yanni. I don't think, on this occasion, I'm going to disagree with you. It doesn't require a specific time frame because the DCL transition planning will drive the timetable.
Right.
Melanie.
I was just wondering if you have an idea, and I know we're not considering it now, but so I guess it's probably not relevant, but about the amount of funding that will probably be required over the long-term plan for this?
Yeah, I was thinking, I don't have to go answer this. Listen, there's $12.1 million currently on the budget in the 2018 to 28 long-term plan. That is split between approximately 2.7 million that is in now the current and next year, predominantly for the Orem Ave extension, and the remainder of the money is for the public realm, the mall enhancements predominantly, and that's in I think the final 3 years, so from 2025 probably through to 2028, so that represents the council funding. It is also tied into the DCL transition plan that we need to get a head around what the opportunities and or any costs or benefits are from any of the activities related to the land that DCL currently owns, both the Old New Brighton School and the Bereford Street land. So we'll want to bring that together, but that's the current budget envelope. I haven't seen any further planning about whether anything additional or less is required, but that's going to depend on the timing and when you want to do the public realm, which is our LTP decision.
Thank you.
Jake and then Sarah.
Following on from that one, do you know what we've, just as a rough sort of figure, what we've spent on regeneration already in New Brighton, including DCL's work and including the hot pools?
BB tells me about 25 million, which is probably right. So we'd need to go back over the various initiatives, and it's almost a question of when do you start, but certainly over the last 5 years, when you look at the investment that the council has made in public realm, starting with the Puna Taimoana, Marine Parade, the Children's Playground, basketball court, and other activities in and around New Brighton, it started to catalyse its level of investment, and I do agree and would support what Leanne says. If we stop now, though, we'll miss making that transition to the private sector also needing to pull their weight. And what we're saying is actually we've got a little bit more to do, but now the private sector needs to start. They've always said, we want confidence that you're going to do your part, we're doing our part, and we're committed to doing our part.
The figure's good enough, thank you. Yep.
Can you confirm that the hot pools were a legacy project, quite separate from the regeneration planning process?
I remember well the conversation about needing a legacy project for New Brighton, so they didn't come out of the master plan per se. I think the master plan simply identified a activation of the foreshore, but that was a council decision to create a legacy project reflecting what that area had been through, in particular in the earthquakes.
Thank you. Sarah.
Thank you. I just remember last term each of the community boards and then the Innovation Committee went through a suburban master plan prioritisation process, and in the last LTP, so it was prior to the last LTP, and projects were placed within the LTP according to that prioritisation process, but actually a lot of the projects that are in each of the master plans weren't even in the LTP, so there was a budget that was put in for prioritised projects, but I'm just wary of raising expectations of getting all of the master plan stuff done, which is what the resolutions kind of indicate, but finishing the entire master plan, when actually even currently only the key ones are currently prioritised within the long-term plan and not the whole of it, because there's public realm on all sorts of different streets and things like that in the master plan. So I think we just have to be careful over the expectations that are raised, because there are 9 suburban master plans, and while I think Littleton's looking really good and almost finished, actually there's Sydenham, Edgware, Linwood, those kind of areas which haven't had the legacy projects and significant investment either. So.
And each of the master plans is both a combination of work that the council or its agents will do and also the private sector.
That's the end of questions? Yeah. Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Melanie?
I support Kelly and Beebe and the board with this, but there are some master plans that haven't even been started yet, such as one in my ward. So we just need to keep that in mind when we're looking at the LTP.
That's right, not committing.
Yanni?
Yeah, look, I support this too. I think it's quite sensible to bring things together. I would just make the comment, I think we do as a council need to look at our strategy and work planning program, because quite clearly, a number of things in these resolutions, while are really good for this area, there's other communities that have repeatedly asked for stuff to happen that hasn't happened, and we've been told, we've I guess we kind of say, well, there's not enough resource, and things have to be delayed if we keep adding new stuff to staff in terms of the workload. So I'm very mindful that this council can't do every single thing that is asked of us, but I do think, given what we've learnt through some of the heat mapping that our strategy team has shown us, there's areas in our city that are really, really suffering at the moment that require some additional resource to go in and do the things like the planning and the investment in those areas like the inner city east, like Linwood, like around the Eastgate area, and you've all seen those presentations about what's going on. So I don't believe that this work should stop, and I think these resolutions are quite sensible. I just don't want to hear excuses why other work that we've asked for is not happening because we don't have the resource. If we can take on doing new stuff, then let's commit to the stuff we've already agreed to and make sure we get it done.
Tim, Andrew?
I guess it's really the 17 people around this table are going to give direction to the council staff about the long-term plan and what projects are given the priorities and others. So we can flick around like a ping-pong ball, but I do think that the local community do have to be honest with regards to what will invigorate and bring back New Brighton, because since the Saturday trading has changed, a number of plans have been put in, and I think this council and yourselves have to be really honest about what can be actually at the end game, because that's what we all want. We want it for your communities, we want it for all of our communities which have these plans that haven't even started yet. So I think there has to be honesty around this table, but it is the 17 people at this table that will be putting the priorities up for all of the communities and give direction to staff.
Andrew?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very happy to support this today and to support the work that Kelly and BB and the Community Board have done in bringing this forward, and in particular the work that's been done over the last 24 hours or so to get this into a form which is able to be supported by staff, and I expect supported by Council today. I also take the point regarding raising expectations, and I think the wording of paragraph 4 now reflects the reality that this is one of a number of master plans across the city, and of course we will be in a competitive funding environment, as we always are, and certainly some of the challenges of the upcoming long-term plan have already been well canvassed. So in that context, very, very happy with this. I remember well the adoption of the New Brighton Master Plan, which wasn't one of the first cabs off the rank. Littleton, Sydenham and a couple of others I think came first, but there was certainly a lot of excitement around the adoption of this master plan a few years ago, in as much as this had been really well consulted on and engaged with the community. This was a really good example of co-creation, and there was a lot of hope and aspiration in the community at that time. The plan for New Brighton is well understood and well supported. The challenge now, and this is what this piece of work is all about, is creating and maintaining momentum around the priority projects and the creation and completion of the vision that was set out in that plan. Council, of course, isn't going to do all of this on its own. We're going to work with others. In some cases, we're going to be incentivising others to do work that they're going to lead. So this isn't all councils to do, but certainly we've got a strong interest in seeing the work done. So I'm very happy with this today, and I really hope that this is the intervention that's needed to continue with some of the good work that's already been planned and to create the momentum that's required to complete the piece of work that's been started.
Thank you. Before I invite James to sign off the debate, I'll simply say that, thank you to the community board. When I spoke to community boards, I think a while ago, and said that I wanted them to use Part A's to bring matters to the council table so that we could make empowering decisions. This is precisely the sort of thing that I had in mind. So I'm really grateful that you've taken the opportunity to do this. As I said, I was the MP when the 2002 revitalisation plan, which wasn't the first, came about. There had been a lot of work done on New Brighton, and I'm pretty sure that if I search the records, I can find dreams of a Queensland, beachfront with high-rise along Marine Parade. People are starting to ring a bell now, changes were made to the district plan to enable that sort of development in New Brighton, and of course, the idea of that sort of development went out of the window in 2010 with the beginning of the Canterbury earthquake sequence as it became known. So it was, but to me, New Brighton is more than New Brighton in its own suburban setting or village setting, really, probably more appropriate word. It is the end point of where the journey from the city to the sea ends, or the beginning of the journey from the sea to the city, depending on your perspective. It is where people will end up that take that trail along the Otakaro Avon River corridor. And it needs to have a magnet to draw people in. As I've said, the beachfront will always draw people to the beach. The pier will always draw people to the pier. We had thousands and thousands and thousands of people coming to New Brighton in 2002. We had no trouble attracting people to New Brighton. They just didn't cross the road. They didn't then. And they won't now until something fundamentally changes. And yeah, I'd love a riverside market. I'd like a seaside market. There's a challenge to Richard Peebles to get his dreaming hat on again and rethink the inner core. Text him immediately, yeah. But the point is that Orem Ave is the key to cutting off the easterly wind. That's the key to it. And this is the one area where we actually do own the road. And that enables us to do things that we can't do in Woolston or Linwood or some of the other suburban areas that have been described, because we simply don't have the ability. This is the one place where we can create a real environment that will make people feel welcome, but will also encourage locals to shop local. I know how much money gets dragged out of New Brighton every single week as they go down to Pack and Save or somewhere else outside of that New Brighton area. So making that an environment where people love to be, that will reinstate what I think New Brighton is aiming to achieve. So over to you.
Kia ora. I grew up in the 1950s at 89 Union Street in New Brighton, and so I'm proud and privileged and honoured to be representing the community that I grew up in. And of course New Brighton is at the heart and soul of the coastal ward. So today is significant. This is a significant step. I want to acknowledge that the Mayor started this process that we find ourselves in today, just before the lockdown, when she got Councillor Major and myself in and grabbed us by the ears and said, right, we need to do something about this. So I would consider her the mother of the notion of what we're trying to do today, what we're going to do today. And then I acknowledge too the Deputy Mayor who took it on and tidied up the motion along with Brendan Anstis as one of our ELT, and brought us the draft of this momentum that we want for that side of town. And then, we, of course, Kelly and Bibi were the architects of the final motion that we see, recommendation that we see in front of us. I also want to acknowledge, because this is a significant step forward for this community, our community, my community, I also want to acknowledge the work that DCL have done over the last 5 years under the leadership of Rob Hall, their CEO, and some of their staff are here today and acknowledging you. So thank you for that. I also thank my colleagues around the chamber here for the supportive and sensible comments that have been made with reference to this recommendation. And once again, I thank all staff for the advice that the hand that they've played in this. Phil Major and I have been approached over the last 9 months since we were elected by many, many people interested in investing in that part of town. Now, this move today will unlock and unblock that private investment in New Brighton. We will give them confidence and comfort that we're playing our part in the public realm as we should, and we, Phil and I, on behalf of all of us, will make it clear to the private investors that they have to play their part too. There are rules to this game, and we'll play our part, they play their part, and together we can make it a lot better. All right, so thank you all for the comments, and I await the vote.
Kia ora. On that note, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. Good. All right, people. Now, I'm going to adjourn the meeting for morning tea. The report that I referred to earlier is available for you to read over the break. So I'm going to take a decent break. So if people could be back in the room, and at that point I will be moving a motion to go into to consider the report, and then I'll be going into public excluded. So that there won't be an open meeting beyond that, because we've got our public excluded items. So if people could rejoin the table at 11:40. 11:40, that's 35 minutes, and that will enable you to have a coffee and a tea. I'm calling the meeting back to order, and I would like to move that the council resolves under Standing Order 6.11 items of business on the agenda which cannot be delayed to deal with a public excluded item of business that is not on the agenda and which cannot be delayed relating to the Royden Quarry consent decision. And we're noting that the reason why the item is not on the agenda is that it has only recently been raised and discussion cannot be delayed until a subsequent meeting because of Environment Court deadlines. Do I have a seconder for the resolution? Jake, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. I'll now move that the resolution to exclude the public set out on pages 248 to 251 of the agenda be adopted, and item 27, Royden Quarry consent decision, for the reasons set out below. So I will. Sorry, can you just scroll up? The report can be released when, but
after the appeal.
Yeah, but I want to note that the decision of the council can be released earlier. So, like today. So,
maybe released
before we go into PX.
Yeah. I just want to know, last time the council made decision as a PX, whether those information has been open to public or not yet.
No, the legal matters.
Yeah, I understand legal, but when will it be open to public?
After the appeals have been resolved.
Yeah. It's not.
We're not going to release the legal advice that we received.
Okay, it's not. I'm not sure. I'm not mentioning this one. I mentioned previous one.
Yes.
Whether those resource concern has been granted by the independent commissioner, they will be open to it.
No.
Just want to know the timing.
After the appeal.
Until everything is finished.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to know, to be clarified.
That is the case with legal advice, Jimmy.
But I couldn't remember. I thought it's the kind of when the independent commission when the resource concern application.
No, we got advice. We got advice as to whether we would appeal. So that will never be released until all the matters are settled and resolved.
Okay.
So it can't be released now. That would be damaging.
Can I just make a point that clearly, depending on the decision made today, you would want to let the community board know what that decision was.
I've just said this. The decision of the council may be released earlier with the approval of the chief executive.
Okay.
Sorry, we added that. Thank you. Right, it's been moved and seconded. So I will put the motion. Oh, has it been moved and seconded?
We haven't got a second for going into PX.
Sorry?
We haven't got a second for going into PX. You moved it.
Mike's second.
Yep.
Mike second.
Mike Davidson. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you.